Well, good evening, everybody. This is Yulia. I'm Yulia Houston. I'm in my office. Thank you so much for joining my favorite webinar of all times. It's called College Admission 101. It is my favorite. Oh, I have an announcement. Just a second. I apologize. All right, here we go. So it is my favorite webinar of all time, simply because I absolutely love talking to junior parents about college admission process that we're starting with their students in the middle of January. So let's go over our agenda so you know what to expect over the next hour. So my presentation actually will be quite short, but it's by design. I would like to make sure that we have plenty of time at the end of the presentation for me to answer any questions that you might have. So since I have a parent volunteer who's so kind to volunteer to moderate the chat, then after my presentation is over, we can all either unmute ourselves or use the chat. And then Katerina will read the questions from the chat and I will be answering them. And you also can ask questions by just unmuting yourself and asking me directly. So let's just start. Hold on a second. Well, now my computer doesn't want to work. Well, here we go. So this is what we will cover over the next hour or so. I will talk about the IMSA college selection timeline. Oh my goodness, we have another announcement. I'm so sorry. Okay, very good. Our students' lives are just so busy in the evening. There's so many things happening. So we're going to go over the college selection timeline so you know what to expect when. We're going to talk specifically about what students are required to do and what parents are required to during that process. And then at the end, I will share with you some college admission college admission criteria. We're going to go over it, but at the end I'm going to share with you some IMSA statistics, admission statistics. I think will be very interesting for you to see where our class of 2021 ended up, where is our class of 2022 is heading. So it will just be interesting for you to kind of get a glimpse of what's going to happen with your students next year as they begin their college application process. Okay, this is just something. Okay, here we go. So sophomore year, junior year, and senior year. As you can see, there's no word college under the sophomore year heading, and it's actually intentional. We really would like for all of our sophomores to find their place and find their pace at IMSA. As you know, IMSA is very demanding, and even though your students were sophomores last year and they spent it on Zoom, nevertheless, it's still same rule applies. So it's really important for students to understand how much time they need to study, how much time they can socialize. Also very important for students to find passions or continue with passions that they had prior to being admitted to IMSA. But when it comes to the application process and admission process itself, colleges will be interested in students who not only do well in the classroom, but also have vibrant lives. So we always ask our students to make sure that they either find passions at IMSA or continue with the passions they previously had. Now, here comes the junior year, and this is where we begin the college conversations. So if you talk to your students daily, which I hope you do, or regularly, you know that we had our junior college selection meeting on Monday, which was yesterday, and I met with my assigned to me juniors, and Ms. Pilda met with assigned to her juniors. This coming Thursday at 4:30, Ms. Mollenhaus and Mr. Donaldson will be meeting with their juniors all together in one big meeting, and then I will introduce Mr. Donaldson at the end with a little bit bigger introduction. Well, anyway, so the meetings are happening right now. The meetings are for junior students, not for sophomore students or parents. So make sure that you talk to your students and ask the questions about the meeting. I will be sending a super important email to all parents on Friday, where I will outline the steps of our college application process, and we'll mention the meetings again. We already posted, the PowerPoint presentation is actually posted in shared files on Naviance. So if you're curious to see that tonight, you can also do that too. So junior year is spent on talking about colleges, researching about colleges, making sure that students understand that college admission is business. So it's not a mystery to be solved. It's not a puzzle to be put together. You really need to know the rules of that business for you to be successful. And the senior year, if all of the senior year is spent on our seniors applying to colleges, and the CAC office is doing everything to support our students' college application process. So that's pretty much what the 3 years look like. For some reason, my computer is stuck a little bit, so when I advance it, it doesn't want to advance. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. So when it comes to the college selection process, what we're going to be asking students to answer all of those questions. So favorite academic subjects, what kind of a student you are, and so on. I'm not going to be reading them because you can read them themselves. And while to you, some questions might look kind of a random, such as what kind of a person are you? What are you good at? What makes you happy? Actually, those questions come from college applications that your students will be completing next fall. Most selective colleges and universities actually ask those types of questions. What are you good at? What makes you proud? So we're asking our students to brainstorm those questions so they're not stumped or they don't feel perplexed in the fall when they actually have to answer them. So all of our juniors will be required to submit a very extensive self-assessment, and those questions are actually embedded in that self-assessment. So this is where the questions are coming from. Now, the second part of the student preparation, now this is where the college research actually comes in. So after submitting those questions in the form of a self-assessment, the students will be meeting with us for family college conferences. At least one parent must be present at those conferences.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, I want to make sure that everybody's muted. So, and during that college meeting, this is where we're going to be talking about, so what else matters to you? So is the distance important? The size of the school is important. How about the student diversity? How about the cost? The cost probably is the most important question that we will be addressing during those meetings, because it's very important for us to make sure that we tailor the college list to the particular nuances of your family. So not only to your student academic aspirations, but also your ability to pay. So not all colleges have merit money, and all parents oftentimes are under impression that every single college just cannot wait to give your students some money. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. So many colleges only offer students financial aid if your student qualifies for financial aid. So those questions, like I said, they're a little bit more easier to answer just because they're kind of a factual questions, but still every single junior will be asked to answer those questions. Now, when it comes to the parent part, the parent part is not necessarily vague. That's not the right word I want to use, but it's very open. It's very kind of open-minded and open-ended. So we would like for parents to, first of all, take interest in the student's college search. But before you do that, you really need to be aware of your student's academic record. So you know, there's this myth out there that, well, my student is attending IMSA, so therefore colleges are gonna open their doors wide and high. Well, not necessarily. For that, your student really needs to deliver at IMSA, because grades still are the most important factor when it comes to admissions. So make sure that you know how well your student is doing at IMSA. Make sure that you stay in touch with your students' CAC. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I cannot tell you how many invites I sent to my parents and how often I make an invitation. Please reach out to me. We can meet as many times as you would like. I can answer as many emails as you would like. Well, not too many parents, unfortunately. Oh, I am so sorry. Now we have this birthday song that is being played.
My smack performance happening in Lexington tonight. Come down from 5:30 to 7:30 for the coffee house run by Snack and Cab. It's gonna be lit.
Okay, here we go. Hopefully that was the last one. So make sure that you stay in touch with your student CAC. Your student's CAC should be your #1 college resource, not only yours, but also your students. Make sure that you keep an open mind about your student college search process, and make sure that you understand this is your student's process. This is not your process. What oftentimes happens with parents is they start sort of like reliving their whole entire college process all over again and suggesting colleges that they wish they would have applied, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago. Well, the times have changed. So even though it's possible that your student's great aunt attended Harvard back in 1973 or 86 or 92, well, Harvard is not the Harvard now that was back then. So make sure that you are attuned to the 2021 that we're living right now. Be also realistic. Make sure that you are aware of statistics on Naviance. We're going to go over Naviance in a second, because Naviance gives you data for the last 3 years when it comes to IMSA students applying to various colleges and universities. So you can log in and you can see yourself, how many students were actually applied to Harvard, how many were admitted, and what does it take to be admitted? I mean, what kind of a grades do you need to have if you're from IMSA, and what kind of a test scores? Be honest with your students about finances. And I know that talking about finances is a little bit of a taboo in the United States, and not many families have that conversation. But I cannot tell you how often I would get a phone call from a parent, let's say after April 1. So on April 1, a student is admitted. So on April 1, every single senior will know whether or not he or she was admitted. And also on April 1, every single senior will know what kind of financial aid packet a college sent. So I would have a conversation with the parent, will say, well, we received the financial aid packet from let's say, I'm just going to make it up, from, Caltech, but we cannot possibly afford to pay $72,000. Well, you should have done all the calculations prior to that, so you're not ambushed and you're not having a heart attack on April 1. And most importantly, please be a source of comfort and support. I always tell our seniors that your parents and your CACs are your biggest fans. So please continue to be your students' fan all throughout the college process. Now, here we come probably to the most important part of my presentation. So I'm going to be talking right now. Remember how I mentioned at the beginning that college admission is business? So here are the rules of that business called college admission. So there are 3 P's when it comes to the college admission, and they go like that. So there's performance, there's passion, and there's priority. So every single college evaluate every single student based on those 3 criteria, and only those 3 criteria. Nothing else is important, and nothing else matters, and nothing else is considered. Also, I want to make sure that I say it again. All students are subject to these 3 criteria, from IMSA or not from IMSA. My son, who graduated during the pandemic, it was the May of 2020, and he was applying to colleges obviously prior to that in the fall of 2019. He never went to IMSA. He graduated from a regular public high school. He was the subject to the same 3 criteria. So let's go over each one very, very carefully. So the performance is evaluated by looking at two sets of documents, so if you wish. First of all, transcript, and the second of all, standardized tests. So when it comes to transcripts, colleges will be looking for patterns, and they will be looking also for junior year grades. For colleges, junior year performance is the most important performance of all time, because it's the one that is closest to the college application process. It also allows students to improve. So they will be asking a student, well, not a student, but they will be asking themselves a question as they look at the student performance. Can the student sustain the same level of, let's say, excellence, or the same level of work throughout multiple semesters? Is the student improving over time? And then they're going to look at the test scores and they're going to say, do the student's test scores match his academic performance in the classroom? According to colleges, it is more important to perform in the classroom than at the gym for 2 hours or 4 hours, whatever, how long that test took. It's also, colleges are also not naive. They also understand that some parents pay money for students to be tutored in SAT, ACT, whereas you cannot get possibly tutored to do well in the classroom every single day. So while the standardized test scores play a role, they play a secondary role to the transcript, to the student's transcript. Furthermore, many colleges suspended testing during pandemic, and they kind of continue to do that in some cases. However, majority of schools are returning back to requiring testing. We can see that this year. And furthermore, the large state university simply cannot function without having a standardized test. Now, University of California is an anomaly in that sense. And I don't know if you read the news, but University of California system, so that would be University of California, Berkeley, Los Angeles, and so on, decided to completely abolish standardized testing for all students. It will be interesting to see how they will deal with the absolutely huge number of applicants. So performance is absolutely the very first door that your student must walk through. The second door is called passion. So this is where your students, your colleges will be evaluating your student. Colleges will be evaluating your students live outside of the classroom. So every single college is going to ask two questions when a college will be evaluating your student's resume. So the question will be, what have you done for a high school? The question will be number one. And the second question will be, what have you done for other communities? The smaller the high school, the higher the expectation on college's part for a student to contribute to that high school. So as I mentioned before, my son graduated from a regular public school. In fact, there was a humongous public school. There were about 900 students in his class, just in his class alone. So clearly when students from that kind of a high school apply to colleges, colleges are not looking for the student to be the president of a club or to do anything, because it's kind of impossible. Now, our high school is very small. There are only 200 students roughly in each class. So the expectations will be there for your student to be involved with IMSA Live. And then the expectation will be for your student to involve outside of IMSA. Now, when it comes to the latter, colleges really do not penalize students for, let's say, being a babysitter to younger students, to younger children in the family, or helping grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, parent with some kind of a business that perhaps your family runs. Because the colleges really define other communities very, very loosely. So that other community can be your family, it can be your hometown, it can be a Boy Scout community that your child, or Girl Scout community that your student continues to be active in. It can be any community of your student's choice, but it has to be a community of some sort. And then the final criteria, this is the one that is oftentimes raised, makes many parents roll their eyes and raise their eyebrows, but they're just the reality of American higher education life. It's called priorities. And by priorities, what colleges mean is that, unfortunately, I have to break your heart, your student will be admitted not because your student is wonderful or because college is madly in love with your student. Your student will be admitted because your student will bring something to that institution that institution needs. So priorities are called priorities because they talk about needs, priorities of those particular institutions where your student will be applying to. So let's go over very, very basic priorities that all colleges have. Everything in your student file will be scrutinized, starting with your student's gender. I don't know if you know, but there are more girls in colleges, unfortunately. So by the virtue of being a boy student is always more of a priority to a college than a girl. And I say this, unfortunately, being a woman, that just absolutely breaks my heart. I also have two sons that one already graduated from college and one is in college. And again, it breaks my heart because they didn't do anything. They were just born boys. And yet because of that, they were giving extra perks in their columns. So everything will be scrutinized from the gender of your student to your zip code. So if your student will be applying to colleges within Illinois, let's just pretend Northwestern University, it's going to matter to Northwestern University if your student is from Peoria or East St. Louis or Naperville, because Northwestern obviously would like to enroll students from all throughout the state of Illinois. If your student will be applying outside of Illinois, let's use an example of Boston University. Boston University is going to look at your zip code and is going to say, okay, this student is from Illinois. Boston University probably is going to get, 4,000 applications just from students from Midwest. Probably, 1,800 to 2,000 applications just from students from Illinois. It's really a big state for Boston University. Now, Boston University might get 2,000 applications from Illinois and let's say 4 from Wyoming. So if you look for Boston University, which applications would you be eager to read? An application from a student from Illinois or an application from a student from Wyoming? Well, obviously from Wyoming, because again, the priority for that university called Boston University is to enroll students from all states. So gender, zip code, level of your education will be on the table. Every single college, every single university would like to enroll what is called first generation students, meaning students whose parents never, ever, ever went to college. So that student did not grow up sitting around the dinner table hearing stories. Well, when I was in college, this is what the life looked like. So students who are first generation students are always prized possession for any college, because they're considered to be self-starters. So colleges will be looking for those students. So if your student is a first generation student, your student automatically will be a priority for any institution he or she's applying. Now, I want to make sure that I clarify what I just said. So it's not the fact that, so first generation student means that parents did not go to college anywhere. Does not mean just in the United States. So we have plenty of parents who went to college, let's say, abroad in India or in China. Well, it doesn't count because you did go to college. It's when a student parent did not go to any college whatsoever. This is when a student considered to be a first generation student. How much money you make will be a priority to some colleges. Remember how I said college admission is business? And in general, colleges exist so they can make money. I mean, they're just bottom line. So for many colleges, ability to pay plays a huge role. Whether or not you're going to file for FAFSA, how much financial aid you need, that can be a priority. Another priority can be and will be your student's major. So back in 1986, when IMSA was born, back then hardly anybody was interested in majoring in STEM. Therefore, the IMSA was born as a result of that, because there was a big push in our society to produce more students interested in STEM. Well, since then, times have changed. So right now, there are more students applying to colleges with intended STEM major, not just from IMSA, never mind IMSA, just throughout the country, than students who are applying with majors in humanities. So students who are interested in majoring in humanities always are more of a priority for colleges and universities. And then finally, when University of Chicago, I'm going to use as an example, admits 1,200 students in their freshman class, they cannot possibly admit and everybody's from Russia, let's just pretend, or everybody's from China, or everybody's from India. They want to make sure that students they admit represent various cultural backgrounds, various ethnicities, various races. So that again will be on the table. So institutional priorities, what ultimately will decide whether or not your student is admitted or not. And that's just the bottom line, and we have to deal with that. So that's not the case when it comes to studying, to attending a college abroad. So if your student is interested in attending a college, let's say in Canada or in Scotland, in Europe, the college that, let's say Jacobs University in Bremen, the college that offers education in English, or let's say in Australia or whatever the case may be, in England. Now, colleges in Europe, including Australia and also in Canada, really do not have any priorities whatsoever. So that means students based 100% on the merit. So it's a very different system of admission in the world. United States of America has a unique system of admission. Our system of admission called holistic system of admission and fair, versus in Europe, it really truly is just a student against the college admission criteria. So those are the three things you absolutely must keep in mind. So every single student will be judged based on student performance, based on the student passions, and whether or not that student is a priority for that institution or not. Now, when it comes to evaluating IMSA students, not only IMSA students will be evaluated based on those three criteria I mentioned again, but what IMSA students bring, and this is what makes IMSA students unique, and oftentimes colleges fight for IMSA students because they bring three things that is really truly unique. And I should have probably put them in different order. Residential experience actually is the most important of them all. And you probably can guess why. Every single college always worries about freshman attrition rate, because many freshman students just cannot sustain the independence lifestyle, and they either make poor choices or they cannot spend enough time on academics and they just flunk out. So coming from a residential high school guarantees that that student will enter college as a seasoned, so to speak, kind of a mini college student, because that student already knows how much time he or she needs for academics. Student can prioritize his or her life. Student understands how to lead a balanced life. So coming from a residential high school is very, very irresistible to many colleges and universities. Research or internship opportunities also put a little cherry on the cake here too, because not too many high school students can say that, you know what, while I was in high school, I did this awesome research or I completed this awesome internship experience. That also appeals to colleges. It shows incredible level of maturity on a student part. And clearly IMSA academic reputation. What IMSA is known for when it comes to academics is the lack of grade inflation among colleges, and also rigorous coursework, particularly in math and science. So all those three things really, really play a role as well, will play a role as well in your student college admission decisions. I already mentioned Naviance. So this is a snapshot of a Naviance picture, not a picture, of a Naviance portal. This is some random student that I just took a snapshot. So make sure that all of you have access to Naviance. So we send you your Naviance logins back when you were a parent of a sophomore, when your students were sophomores. So that was done in December of 2020. So if you forgot, if you lost your login, we send you, I sent to you what's called registration code. So if you forgot or where you misplaced it, make sure that you reach out to your student's CAC, because your student CAC will resend you the login. All parents should get familiar with Naviance, because like I said before, Naviance does two things beautifully. First of all, it stores data for IMSA applicants for the last 3 years. So you can log in and you can check out any college of your choice to see, what the IMSA admission rate there is, how hard is it to get in. And the second thing, this is where you will actually track your student college application process, because this is where we post the dates when we send college documents on your student behalf. So you will always know what the CAC office did on your student's behalf. So please, please, please get familiar with Naviance, register to use Naviance, play with Naviance. The winter break is coming. Ask to sit down with your student and ask your student to walk through Naviance. All of our juniors are very familiar with Naviance and know how to use it very well. Now, remember, I promised at the end, I promised at the beginning that I will share with you at the end of my presentation some statistics. So this is the first set of statistics. I thought that you probably will be kind of curious to see that. So this is the class of 2021 that we graduated last year. And probably the most important statistics, most interesting statistics are the last 3 columns at the bottom. So this is the first time that I see that our class was evenly split between students attending Illinois institutions versus out-of-state institutions. Usually the number of out-of-state institutions is higher than Illinois institutions. I attribute that to COVID and to pandemic. It's just students were not as eager to travel anywhere too far outside of Illinois, just because of the fear of unknown. We did not know what was coming, what was happening with that. So that's probably what happened. So average number of applications is 9.6. It was high last year. Usually it's right around 9 or a little bit lower than 9. But that, everybody just felt insecure. And this slide is a side-by-side comparison, but I want to make sure that I say something before you jump and start analyzing it. So the class of 2021, the numbers you see there are final numbers. The class of 2022, they're still going to change. And the reason why they're going to change is that the numbers that I put on the screen are at the moment. However, many of our students will not follow through with their intention of, to apply. So the numbers will go down, not up. So the number of University of Michigan applicants most likely is going to go down. The same for every single number, with the exception of University of Urbana-Champaign. So the 170 is a number that's going to stay, because every single student already submitted applications. their application to the University of Urbana-Champaign. And the rest of the colleges, like I said, the numbers will go down significantly because then in January, they're not going to feel like applying. And so they will just abandon their ideas of applying. But the reason why I'm showing you this number is that you can see that our 10 most popular colleges, really, truly, the list doesn't really change that much from year to year. There's some variations, but about 50% of colleges are pretty stable. I think we're coming almost to the end of my presentation. Yeah, so this is the very last slide, and then I'll talk a little bit about our new CAC. So this is what you also need to remember. How I said, if you forget everything from my presentation, you need to remember that colleges will be evaluating every single student using the 3 criteria: the performance, passion, and priorities. I also would like for you to remember this. You want to make sure that you stress to your student that your student is applying to colleges because he wants or she wants to attend. So it's the attending that needs to be emphasized. So this is another conversation that is absolutely breaks my heart, and I have them every single year. I even had them last year when we were in Zoom, which was just really shocking. So again, on April 1, I would have a student in my office who will be looking at me with crying eyes and saying, "Yulia, I applied to 8 schools. I was admitted to these 4. Well, I cannot imagine attending them." To which I want to turn around and say, "Who put them on your list? I didn't. Your parents didn't." So make sure that you focus your attention, you parents, throughout the whole application process. Make sure that you ask your student all the time, do you see yourself attending that school? Because your student should not be applying for the sake of application. Your student should be applying because your student cannot wait to be a student there. So it brings us to the bullet number 2. So emphasis should be very much on going or attending rather than getting in. And then the third, I don't know if you heard us say that, but I say it all the time to my students. So college is really, truly not, it's a match to be made. It's not any kind of a prize to be won. And we pledge to you, I pledge on my colleagues' behalf to you, to all of you parents of junior students, that we will help each junior to find the best college match when it comes to the academic match and it comes to the financial match that meets your family's expectations and your family's ability to pay. And I promise you that, and I pledge to you that. All right, so here are our names, just in case you forgot who your student's CAC is, so you can see it again. So we did hire finally Mr. Donaldson. He started last Monday, which was the November 29. So Mr. Donaldson has extensive experience in the college admission world. He comes to us from New Jersey. He is a very likable person. He's kind of very, very passionate, very kind of a very loud, but in a very good way. I mean, sort of like me a little bit. I think the students who will be working with Mr. Donaldson are going to like him a lot. And definitely those students will meet Mr. Donaldson when it comes time to schedule their family college conference. So this is the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to, oops, hold on a second. I am going to turn my camera on. I have this new system that ITS helped me with. So right now you're free to unmute yourself. I will answer all of your questions, and then Katerina will make sure, Katerina, you're there? To make sure that she monitors the chat.
I am.
Oh, excellent.
Thank
And
you,
then,
Julia.
yes, absolutely. So you can write your questions in the chat. Katerina will be reading them to me, or you can unmute yourself and ask me any questions. So I'm ready.
Julia, this is Peter. My daughter just got the result from her PSAT. Is it a one-to-one matching with her result in PSAT? Is what her SAT should be?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So let's talk about the PSATs a little bit. So I don't know how many of you know, but our Karen, our administrative assistant right now is in California. She's taking care of her son. He's not feeling well. So she will be back. She should be back on Thursday. So as soon as Karen arrives, we will enter all of our students' PSAT results on Naviance. So if your student did not log into the College Board, then you will see it on Naviance. Now, when it comes to the correlation, it's pretty close. So if your student, let's just say, received 700 in mathematics on PSAT, most likely your student will score between 680 and 720 on the SAT. So that's why it's called P, preliminary. The P stands for preliminary or practice. So the PSAT usually correlates with SAT very well. Did I answer your question, Peter?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Hi, Julia.
Yes, hello.
Yeah. My two oldest one went to non-IMSA high school.
Okay.
So when it comes to the application, the application they ask for the, what is it? I forgot, cumulative index, and IMSA doesn't do that. So how do we, IMSA student?
So are you talking about GPA?
Yes, there you go.
Oh,
GPA.
okay.
Yes.
Yes. So let's talk about that. So yes, IMSA does not calculate GPA. We send 2 transcripts on each student's behalf. Colleges then turn around and use their formulas to calculate GPA, or some colleges don't calculate GPAs at all. University of Chicago will be a good example. So we do not calculate students' GPA for 2 reasons. We don't want to do work for the college because we don't know how college does it. So we don't want to penalize our students. But most importantly, we cannot possibly equate IMSA curriculum to the pre-IMSA curriculum, or some of our students come from 8th grade. So how are you supposed to now calculate GPA, using IMSA classes as well as the 8th grade classes? So we don't do that. So colleges turn around and do it using their own institutional formulas.
Okay, so when it comes to that, the CAC is going to help to don't leave it blank. The CAC will help.
Yeah, so colleges,
Okay.
so when it comes to the application process itself, our students leave it blank.
Okay.
Yes, on the common application. Yep. And
And same with-
nobody gets penalized for that.
Okay, same with the rank. Because they
Yes,
usually
yes,
ask-
yes.
okay.
Yeah, we do not rank and we do not provide GPA. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions?
Julia, there's a question and it's related to what you were just answering about GPA,
Okay.
weighted, unweighted, but as it relates to AP classes, meaning at other schools, if there is availability of AP classes, obviously that affects GPA. So can you speak to it in regard
Right.
to how we don't have those classes?
Right.
and don't?
Right. So IMSA does not offer any AP classes with the exception of 2. We do offer BC Calc and AB Calc just because of it's a proprietary names, the BC and AB. Now, so let me show you something. Hold on a second. So what I would like for you to do, Al, I'm going to show it to you right now. It's called that 2022 profile. So you can download it from the CAC website. So this is where you will see. So it's a document that we send on your student's behalf to every single college on your student list when your student becomes a senior. So this document, and every single high school does it too. So it's just a part of the admission process. So this document lays out curriculum for every single high school. So it does the same for IMSA. So colleges can look and see what kind of classes we offer. And remember, I mentioned before that the academic reputation of IMSA really precedes itself, because when a college looks at the repertoire of courses we offer and come across such classes as abstract algebra, number theory, theory of analysis, organic chemistry, those classes are so well above and beyond any AP classes that are offered in the regular high school that it's just impossible for a college not to see that. Also, as I mentioned before, there isn't a single national university that is not familiar with IMSA curriculum. So there should be no worry on your part that IMSA does not offer AP classes, because I mean, it's just not part of the equation when it comes to evaluation of IMSA students. Did I answer the question? The person who asked the question, did I answer your question?
I
know you
believe
read
so,
it.
yes.
Kat, I know
Yeah,
you read
they
it, but I
did,
want to
they
make sure
did.
that.
Yes, sorry, I had to
Thank
unmute
you so
myself.
much. No, it's good. Any other questions?
Yes, there is a question that is asking about the state school and so far as Illinois. So do all universities accept Illinois students, or some universities are specific to state?
Okay. So hold on a second. I want to make sure that I understand the question. So our colleges and universities are divided into categories: state and private. Okay. So state university are usually interested in their own students first and foremost, because that's the whole purpose for existence. So University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign would like to enroll as many Illinois residents as possible. Okay. Same statement applies to many state universities, but not all. So let's give an example next door, Michigan. In Michigan, we have the University of Michigan, we have Michigan State, and then we have lots of little small Michigan universities like Central Michigan University, North Michigan University. Now, in Michigan, also there are not as many people in Michigan as in Illinois. And University of Michigan attracts bulk of students from out of state, which leaves Michigan State then kind of scrambling for students. So while University of Michigan is not necessarily interested in out-of-state students, he has too many. Michigan State is very interested in out-of-state students. Very interested in IMSA students. Is very generous with financial aid offers. Same applies to Iowa. So we have the University of Iowa, we have Iowa State. We also don't have enough students in Iowa to sustain those two universities. But this statement does not necessarily apply to California. There are way too many students in California. So University of California, Berkeley, Los Angeles, you name it, are not too interested in out-of-state students. Also, some universities have very strict regulations in terms of percentage of out-of-state students they can enroll. For instance, University of Texas will be a good example. University of Texas, Austin, I mean, the doors are pretty much closed to out-of-state students because they need to enroll 99.9% of students from Texas. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill admits 600 out-of-state students. I mean, literally. I want to make sure that you understand. So I want to make sure that you either ask your question again or I answer your question the way you want it to be answered. So when our students, IMSA students, apply to state universities that are not in Illinois, you need to be careful which universities you're choosing. Was that the question?
Thanks, Julia. Got it.
Okay.
I think that was very helpful. Yulia, I'm going to add my own question to that.
Sure.
Just because, can you speak to parents just briefly about the whole state, out of state as it relates to residency and also costs? And I'm asking that question because, for example, some states don't ever allow their students to become residents.
Yes,
Some
majority.
Right. And the tuition that affects somehow.
So usually, our state universities have two sets of costs. So private universities have just one set of costs. So University of Chicago costs $75,000 for all students. Illinois, non-Illinois, they don't care. State universities have costs for in-state students and out-of-state students. Average out-of-state student cost is right around $50,000 average. Okay, so when our students are admitted to University of Wisconsin-Madison, let's pretend for a second, the cost there will be between $48,000 and $52,000, no financial aid. Because remember I said also, it's really important, state universities exist to educate and financially support in-state students. So state universities usually are not that interested in giving financial aid to out-of-state students, with couple exceptions. I gave an exception already of Michigan State, right, or Iowa. But University of California, they're forbidden by their state laws to give financial aid to out-of-state students. So even if your student will be admitted to University of California, Berkeley, I'm just making this up, because there will be about $55,000 for your student, no financial aid whatsoever. Then your student also will be admitted to University of Urbana-Champaign, and the cost there will be between $28,000 and $32,000. So it's twice as much. Okay, so that's when it comes to cost. So it's always more expensive to be an out-of-state student, but sometimes it pays off because Michigan State or Iowa State or University of Iowa is going to try to bring the cost down to sort of a U of I, because they're not dumb. They understand that we have U of I next door, and they understand that U of I, they know how much U of I costs to our students. So they usually try to bring within like $35,000. So then it becomes, okay, the U of I or let's say Michigan State. Now, when it comes to residency, very few universities, state universities allow their out-of-state students become in-state residents. Usually those universities are in the South, like Mississippi, Alabama's. Usually that's the case, but not Minnesota's, not Wisconsin, not North Carolina, Chapel Hill, none of those.
Thank you, Yulia.
Okay, you're welcome.
I think that
Any
helped.
other questions?
I'm going to move on. The next
Yes.
question,
Mhm.
actually, I think you've already answered it, and I hate
Okay.
to call a parent out, but if you have not, if he can speak forward.
Sure,
The
sure.
question reads, does the availability of financial aid change depending on whether a college is in state or out of state? Which I believe you already
Okay,
answered.
so the financial aid, financial aid is offered. So private schools and public schools offer financial aid for students who qualify. However, if your student is an applicant from out of state, then financial aid can become problematic. University of Michigan would be a case in point. I mean, why would University of Michigan give financial aid to a student from out of state? It just has too many to choose from. Does not need them desperately. Michigan State, on the other hand, will consider giving financial aid. So it depends what kind of a state university you're looking at. Private schools, all private schools have financial aid based on the documents that you will submit on your students' behalf next year. There will be 2 documents. We will have really, really in-depth financial aid conversations during our meetings with your students, because I want to make sure that we talk particularly about your family's nuances. So we want to make sure that the conversation focuses only on your student, not some general and generic, me talking about University of Texas and your student will never apply at the University of Texas. So don't worry about it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Julia, question?
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's going to be a meeting with the student
Yes.
talking about financial aid. Does that include parents or you?
Okay, so yes. So on Friday, I'm going to send a really, really, really important email. So the email is going to be titled IMSA College Selection Process for the Class of 2023. In that email, I'm going to lay out all the steps that are forthcoming, and there are total 8 of them total when it comes to the college process. And one of those steps will be to schedule a family college conference with your student's CAC. So yes, parents must be present, because we cannot talk to your child about finances. Your student probably is clueless to what we're referring to. So the family college conference is involved at least 1 parent, a student, and a CAC. So 3 people minimum. If both parents would like to be present, more power to you. Yes, the email is coming. The email is coming on Friday.
Wonderful. Can you speak to rankings and whether or not I think a lot of high schools have gotten rid of rankings recently?
Yes, right,
Is that a
right.
trend?
Yeah, so the
Can you
rankings
speak to
never
that?
was a part of our equation. IMSA never, ever ranked, never provided GPA. So it's not even a point to consider or ponder. And as Kat, as you already mentioned before, the rankings went away by, the many regular public high schools got rid of it. So it's not a big deal whatsoever for college admission.
The next one reads, what is FAFSA and how does it affect admissions?
All right. So here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to tune in to 2 webinars that are, well, actually, there are probably 3 already, two for sure. They're already posted on the CAC website, and they're under financial aid webinars. Okay, so one is we did the one in September when we talked in general about what kind of finances you need to have in order. And if you did not participate in that webinar, please do it. And then the second webinar we did for senior parents, and we do it every year. It's called FAFSA completion line by line. So it's a document that you will need to complete in the fall of your student senior year. And the document is tied directly to your taxes that you file every April. So the federal government has information directly from the IRS, and then there is a formula that federal government uses and sends the number. It's called expected family contribution number to every single college on your student list, and based on that number, your students will qualify or not qualify for financial aid. But please do watch the webinars. We also will be offering a webinar in January, and the webinar is called How to Choose a College You Can Afford. So that's another way for you to learn more about financial aid. So there's plenty of resources.
Great. Does IMSA have a close connection with college admissions officers? in case you need further follow-up with the college if waitlisted. And in that situation, will IMSA proactively reach out to the college for it on behalf of its students?
College admission process does not work like that. I wish it would, but it doesn't. So the college admission process, it's a one-way street, and the street is student, a college, not a college counselor, a college. And the college is frowned upon big time to any kind of intervention by college counselors or by parents. So to answer the first part of your question, like I said, there's not a single national university that does not know about IMSA. In fact, this Thursday at 9:30, Dean of Admission from MIT is going to call me. He calls me every single year. Well, many deans call, but just it happens to be the MIT is going to be the first one this year, where we're going to go over all of our applicants. He's going to give me kind of a preliminary thinking on their part, who they're going to admit or not. So there should be no worry on your part. Yes, every single college out there, nationally ranked college, not, Aurora University. And there's nothing wrong with Aurora University, not a regional school, national school, knows about IMSA. When it comes to being waitlisted, it will be then student. I mean, clearly we work with our students on the letter of on the follow-up letter, obviously. But I want you also to remember how I said at the beginning, college admission is business. Well, guess what? When it comes to being waitlisted, being a waitlisted student, it's even worse, because then a student who gets off the waitlist is a student that has nothing to do with how passionate he argued for himself or how passionate his CAC was. Well, CAC is not even in the picture. It will be, we are short on boys. We need to admit only boys. So if your student happened to be a girl waitlisted student or vice versa, your student will never get off. Or Washington University in St. Louis is going to say, we don't have enough students in School of Education. So anybody with that major will be invited to attend. Or Northwestern University is going to say, we don't have enough enrolled students from Pacific Northwest. So what are you supposed to do if you're from Illinois? Nothing. And there's nothing you can do. So when it comes to being admitted as a waitlisted student, it really truly, this is where the miracle needs to happen. And the cards needs to line up that they need your gender, your major, your ethnicity, your ability to pay, your intended, your background in terms of your family and all of that, for you to be admitted as a waitlisted student.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For those students that are first generation college students, and parents are definitely proactive. There's a situation here. My daughter will be a first generation college student. We don't even know where to begin with looking for a college.
Okay, that's why you have a CAC. That's why you have a CAC with such a small class load. That's why when my son went through his process, I mean, I think his guidance counselor had like 475 students. That's why you have a CAC. You should not be even beginning the college process. The college process begins in the CAC office, in the CAC meeting, which your student should be attending, either should have attended yesterday or on Thursday, and it's going to continue in the CAC office with your presence during the Family College Conference. During that Family College Conference, your student will be given a college list to research. That college list will be based on 4 important factors. Your ability to pay, because we're going to ask that information from you too. All the parents will be required to submit a self-assessment as well, a parent questionnaire. Your student academic profile, what else is important to your family? I don't know if you have an aunt in California, or if you're moving to California, anytime soon, then you should be looking at colleges in California. So that's why we have such a personal process when it comes to the college application process. That's why it's so tailored. Every single conversation is tailored to every single student's needs. So as a first generation parent, you should be like, wow, am I lucky for my student to attend IMSA?
So the best place to start, whether you're having a first generation student or a student that's actually multi-generally educated, they should start with the kickoff.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can you find out which universities or colleges offer out-of-state scholarships or resources for financial aid for out-of-state students.
So now for out of state, again, we're only talking about state universities because remember, private schools don't distinguish it as state or in state. I want to make sure that it's also crystal clear. So if your student will be applying to Boston University does not give worse financial aid to Illinois residents and better to Massachusetts because it's a private institution. Now, I think that question probably was meant to ask, where do we find information on colleges that give merit money? Because not all colleges do. So a good example would be Caltech or MIT. I mean, so here would be a very, very, oh my goodness, I have another announcement. Just a second.
Amy's going to be holding a community forum about all gender bathrooms and how we can implement them on campus. Come to provide feedback and give us more information on how to help the proposals. See you guys there.
Okay, so the conversation sometimes that happens in my office during the family college conference, I would have usually a father who will say, well, Yulia, I would like for my son to attend MIT and I would like to get financial aid. No. I would like for my son to attend MIT and I would like to get some scholarships. What's wrong with that statement? Well, two things. First of all, I can't guarantee your son will attend MIT, period. Number two, MIT does not have any scholarships, none. So if you don't qualify for financial aid, you will be asked to pay $75,000. So during the meetings that you will have with your CAC, we will, like I said, tailor the college list toward colleges that have merit money or only have financial aid. So those are the conversations that will take place during those meetings.
Thank you. Don't many universities in certain geographic areas form alliances? For example, Upper Midwest, Lower Midwest, that treat all students from neighboring states within the region as in-state students.
Only state universities do that. So for instance, Minnesota has reciprocity with Wisconsin. Wisconsin has reciprocity with Minnesota. The problem with Illinois, in Illinois, we define residency as not working in Illinois, but having a house or residing in Illinois or apartment. So, and nobody else does. Minnesota doesn't. So in Minnesota, to be a resident, you have to make money. You have to have a job. In Wisconsin, you have to have a job. So they have reciprocity because both of them define residency the same. We don't. So nobody has reciprocity with Illinois. Not a single state, because we are different in how we define residency. It is 5:57. I'm also very attentive to time, so I want to make sure that we have like 3 more minutes and I don't want to keep you late. I will post the webinar probably as soon as Wednesday, which is tomorrow, or maybe on Thursday. Well, on Thursday, definitely on Thursday. And I'll send an email right away to everybody letting you know that it's posted so you can watch the slides again. Are there any last moment questions?
Yes. Do parents have the option to attend these meetings in person?
Not only it's an option, it's a requirement. We are so done with Zoom. And we also see that it did not work quite well last year. So all the meetings that will be the family college conferences will be in person. We will do everything to accommodate your schedules, everything. And I mean everything. We will stay after hours. We will come at 7 o'clock if this is what we need to meet. But the meetings will be done in person in your student's CAC. In your student's CAC's office.
How long these meetings will be? Sorry.
1 hour, because we need to make sure that it fits within the free mod that your student has. So it's only 1 hour.
Okay, thank you.
You know when we will anticipate the meeting happens?
So the meeting, so like I said, I'm just so glad that you're asking this question, because you'll be reading my email on Friday with just that much more curiosity and that much more energy. Our meetings are going to take place between middle of January to the middle of April. So that's the window to meet with your students' CAC.
I know we didn't get to the rest of the questions. A lot of them have to do with financials and FAFSA.
Yes.
Again, what I will do is get those questions drafted in an email to Yulia, and she can respond and answer some of those specific questions.
Yes, but I probably will refer everybody to the webinars that we offer. There's, like I said, probably the most important webinar that is coming when it comes to the financial aid for juniors is on January 27th, and it's called How to Choose a College You Can Afford, because they will answer lots of questions. I will also share them with my colleagues who actually do the financial aid webinars. So the webinars that I am kind of an expert in are the academic webinars, college admission webinars, and then two of my colleagues do financial aid webinars, Cara and Sue. So yes, but yes, Kat, please do that. So send me those emails, send me the questions, and then I will share them with my colleagues.
And then parents are interested in the list of universities that have the highest acceptance rate of IMSA students.
Well, that's why you have Naviance for. That's the whole point. Then you will log into Naviance and you will see that. You will see that. You log in on Naviance and you will see the list of all colleges with their acceptance rate.
Is there any way that we can get last 10 years of records?
Say it again.
Is there any way that we can get 10 years of records?
No, I know there's no way, because I really would like for the process, for the college process to be a work together process, a mutual process where you take ownership in that. So no, we will not provide you with that list. We would like for your student and you to spend some time looking at Naviance and thinking about colleges rather than just eating what we're presenting on the platter for here. Really, truly, the college application process should be student owned. It should not be CAC driven. It is not a CAC driven process. It's CAC assisted process, but it needs to be owned by the family and by the student. I thank you very, very, very much for your attention. And I'm just so pleased. We had how many, I want to say we had 63 or 63. That's a large number. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful good night. I will have one more webinar in February, and the webinar will be about choosing courses for next year. That's my very last webinar of this year. You know, the course registration process. So how it works for IMSA, how it works at IMSA. I offered it last year, so I don't know if when you were sophomore, parents of sophomores, if you tune in, but if not, then by all means, please participate in the webinar. You're going to learn a lot. Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.